welcome to Oasis Lactation Services on YouTube. Today I'm going to show you how to make the pickled onions that my kids really like. It's a really strong flavor. It has some salt and some sour in it. And when we talk about baby-led weaning, we often talk about the types of foods that babies can eat, and we tend to forget the seasoning. And it's really important that if you want to cultivate an eater who's going to eat the family meal, that we start introducing appropriate flavors as soon as we can. So I'm going to show you how to make the pickling brine before we chop the onions. And while we chop the onions, I'll tell you how some things work. So this is a quick pickle. This is not a fermented pickle. So this will use vinegar and water, and it will be heated. And most quick pickle recipes are a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts water to 1 part vinegar or acid. And I'm gonna just use up the rest of what I got here. It's probably gonna make a little extra. So I've got about 3/4 of a cup of apple cider vinegar left in my bottle. So I'm gonna do a 1-to-1 ratio because that's what my kids like better. They've been very vocal that when I make a 2-to-1 ratio of acid to water, that the pickles are not tangy enough. So I can also post the ingredients list in the comments. So to make a quick pickle, we're going to use a boiled brine. So I'm gonna get this going on the stove. So that's 1 part of our acid, and then we're gonna use 1 part water. And I like to use apple cider vinegar for my pickles, my quick pickles. It's a good flavor. It's something that I keep for other recipes. I like it with like salad dressings and things raw. So I like to have 1 product because my kitchen's actually not that big. I don't have that much storage capacity because I filled it all up with junk. So our pantry's kind of overloaded. So I like to just have 1 type of vinegar that I can have multiple uses for. So we're pickling a red onion, purple onion. It depends on the child who's cooking with you and what they're asking. And I already went ahead and peeled this one. It had a little adventure on the way back from the grocery store and got dropped a few times. So 1 spot on it was unattractive, but still edible. So all you have to do is slice up the onion, break it up a little bit, doesn't have to be broken up too much, and put it in a wide mouth glass container. I'm a mason jar addict, like I think is the cool thing to do for our generation of parents. Mason jars make everything prettier. They also are just really super effective for hot and cold liquids, storage. And so I'm not really working that hard, you see, just getting the onion in. I'm also going to do some videos on fermented pickled things because fermented foods have naturally occurring bacteria in them. And those naturally occurring bacteria are the original probiotics before we could purchase supplements, right? So what is the benefit of using a probiotic during lactation or pregnancy? Well, we have some pretty good studies showing that probiotic use is correlated with a reduced risk of infectious mastitis. And if you are a frequent mastitis sufferer, or you had mastitis with a previous baby and you're about to start your breastfeeding journey with a new baby, it might be a good idea to get on the phone with your healthcare team, call your lactation consultant. If you don't have one, you can call me, and we can discuss what kinds of probiotics might help reduce that mastitis in the future. So my brine is starting to get hot. I pre-measured. I feel like I'm on one of those fancy cooking videos. So salt. Table salt is fine. I'm using a sea salt that I got at a farmer's market because it was a really good price. So that is a heavy teaspoon of salt, and then this is a light tablespoon of sugar. So a little more than a teaspoon of salt, a little less than a tablespoon of sugar. And I buy raw organic sugar. I like the color of it when it's sprinkled on top of things. I think it tastes good. So we'll put that in there. So that's gonna start heating up and boil. Put the lid on it, that'll make it go faster. So as you see, my onions are filling up my container pretty quickly. You gotta mash them down. You can use your hands. I ferment things pretty regularly, so I have what's called a kraut pounder. So this is made for beating on your vegetables. If you're going to do it in your glass jar, be real careful. Don't do it hard. So just applying some pressure, crushing up those onions, and making a little more space. And they're all gonna get pickled and delicious in there, so we don't have to worry about it being super beautiful. One thing that I do like to add, and if you're going to make this recipe for baby-led weaning, then we have to make a family values judgment on if you would like to add this ingredient. Crushed red pepper. So in my family, we cook spicy food, we eat spicy food. The kids were introduced to spicy food the same week that they were introduced to solids. So in our family, spicy food is really typical, it's really common. So if introducing your kid to spicy food is something that you want to do, you can start that in pregnancy, right? Some of those warmth feelings that we get definitely will be experienced in utero, and continue having these smells. Spicy foods don't make your breast milk spicy. However, having spicy things cooking in the house, those smells and getting used to the scent, right? Smell is a huge part of the way that we like our taste, right? And the experience taste. So having that in the home so baby can smell it, very, very important to acclimating your child to spicy foods if that's normal for your family. If spicy foods are not your thing, by all means, skip this step. It's not gonna change much. I like to add a crushed red pepper with the raw onions. A lot of times a recipe for a quick pickle will have all of the seasoning put into the boiling pot so that it can really steep and really bring out the flavor. And I find that the spice is just right when I don't, I'm gonna turn this off because it's boiling, when I don't overdo the spice. So I like to put it in with the onions. And I just sprinkle it in, and then when we pour the brine over, what'll happen is that'll start to disperse through the pickled onions. So that came up to a boil. That was easy peasy. I'm gonna finish packing this jar, and then I'm gonna pour the brine over it. And I mean, this is just the most simple thing to do, and it's so delicious. What to do with these. So you can just eat them out of the jar. You can also put them on like tacos or pitas or sandwiches, or top your salads. Anything that you might top with pickles or olives or a relish, these go really well on. My older daughter likes to eat it over top of rice, and she likes to pour a little bit of the brine over her rice. That's fine with me. We try not to make a lot of judgments about people's tastes, even though I'm not a big rice fan the way she is. So I've got my jar packed down, raw food, and I'm gonna grab my kitchen towel so I don't burn myself. So I've got this brine that came up to a boil. Now when I pour it in, a bunch of air bubbles are gonna come up. And what that is there's air down trapped and it's on its way out. And that's it. That's as much as we had to do. We didn't really even have to stir the brine because it boiled and it self-mixed using that heat. I'm just tamping it down ever so slightly. And then I've got a fresh mason jar lid. Ooh, it's hot. And we screw this on tight, and then I let it sit on the counter for about 2 or 3 hours, and then move it to the refrigerator where it sits for 2 days before we serve it. And so what's happening right now is that all the air bubbles are coming up to the surface, the chili peppers are getting all married in there, and so there's a light cook happening to those onion slices. And then as it sits in the marinade for the next 2 days in the fridge, it starts to get this really beautiful translucence to it. The flavors get married even more. The texture of the onions changes to more of a pickled texture. It's delicious. Let me get it out of the fridge here. So these are the ones that we made earlier in the week that we already tapped into. So, you know, if you have a mason jar at home, you've already got what you need. You can also use, I mean, Tupperware will work for this. That's glass that has a lid. And so my hands are clean. I'm just gonna stick them in. So you can see it's gotten cute and pink. Kids love colorful food. They absolutely love to eat things that are brightly colored. And teaching kids that brightly colored food can taste good and is fun is such a nice way to develop that palate for them to. It's real tangy, it's real good. So that's how to make pickled onions. It takes just a few minutes. It's a fun little treat to start with your baby-led weaning tray. You know, we left them long so baby can pick them up and hold them. And maybe baby's not actually going to chew a piece off and swallow it. Maybe it's just gonna be a flavor experience. And that's an important step in the feeding process too. Coordinating that slimy, jiggly thing in their mouth, being able to put it in and out of the mouth, tasting it, swallowing some of the flavor, and experiencing that sour, sharp flavor that is so common in most cuisines. So thank you so much for joining me for this quick little pickle tutorial. I will see you next time on Oasis Lactation Services. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. Please share this video with a friend because we are all parents just trying our hardest to make sure these kids get fed and helping inspire food ideas and make that dinner table a more positive experience for everyone is a wonderful service to the community. So hit like and share, and I'll see you next time on Oasis Lactation Services on YouTube.